about how you can use the trend writer framework to find ideas for your next business opportunity. As a reminder, we're in day 3 of the 30-day founder blueprint, where I'm walking you through how to ideate, validate, potentially fundraise, and take your product or service to market, go-to-market strategies, all in 30 days. We're in the first week, and this is all about ideation of ideas. Today, we're going to talk about a simple method called the trend writer method, where you can find business ideas before anybody else. Now, this is one of the things that all of my mentors have told me I'm pretty good at, which is the way it was described to me is I'm pretty good at seeing A plus F equals Z when most people years before just can't figure out how they go together. I'm able to take things and make sense of them. So the best part is in the description. I'm going to put a link to an absolutely free resource. It's an idea validation checklist that you can use as part of this process. Okay, so first of all, we're going to talk about the why and the what, right? So being early to an idea gives you an unfair advantage. So if you were very early in the AI race, which by the way, you can't be now because it's too late, but if you were very early in the AI race, you would have an unfair advantage. There's less competition, which means lower risk, there's bigger rewards, all those different things. So you can kind of ride the wave of trends, but you do have to be careful. Sometimes you can be too early in an opportunity. In 2010, when I launched my first startup, Go Grab Lunch, it was a business-to-business networking site that connected like-minded professionals in person over coffee or lunch. Well, at that exact time, social media had started to become very, very popular, and we were so early that people just didn't understand why they would want to meet random business professionals in person, right? Why wouldn't we just send emails to each other? Well, now, fast forward, that was 2010. We're 16 years later, almost 15 years later. We're back to where in-person is becoming more and more popular. Wrote about that recently on my blog. So we were too early. So you have to be careful about being too early. This trend writer framework, it's a system to help you spot, test, and act on emerging opportunities and do it very, very quickly. But as a reminder, one last time, you just have to be careful. Sometimes you can be too early in opportunities. So one thing that I think about there would have been fidget spinners. Lots of people made money off of fidget spinners, but it died off in no time whatsoever. So here's the first 4 steps of the framework. So the first one is you're going to broaden where you're getting information from. Even if you subscribe to lots of newsletters, lots of blog articles, you listen to podcasts, you do all these different things, you've probably been reading and listening to the exact same things for a very, very, very long time. So it's time to broaden where you're getting your information from, whether that be talking to other professionals that you usually wouldn't talk to, subscribe to blog posts, things like that, podcasts that you don't normally listen to, talking about topics that you don't normally listen to. You need to broaden your scope of what you listen to. The second step we're going to take is we talked about it for a second, you're going to get very focused on developing relationships outside of your circle. So a lot of people spend time with the same people over and over and over, and decades later, you're all just saying the same things. You're not getting fresh ideas. So your network is your net worth. You need to remember that. That's a very important saying. And you need to talk to lots of different people. Talk to professors at universities, see what they're hearing from students. Talk to think tanks. Read newspaper articles of publications you wouldn't normally do. Call the author, reach out to them. Talk to people you don't normally talk to. It's really, really, really important. Step 3, you're going to look for problems without an obvious solution. So that's a really, really important part in this trend writer framework. So the best businesses solve things that people are complaining about, and they fix things that are inefficient, right? And oftentimes they solve them before most people can describe what it is that isn't working for them. They just know that it's not working, but they're not entirely sure what's not working. And if you can spot those things early, you have a real big opportunity. I call this becoming an idea archaeologist, where you're basically able to dig up unmet needs and frustrations that people are talking about. Complaints are basically business opportunities in disguise. So learn to listen for those kinds of things. In your 4th step, you're going to validate the idea. And that's where this checklist comes in handy. In the description to the video, there's a link to a free resource you can download. It's an idea validation checklist. Go check that out. But we're going to step through some of the things that you're hearing, some of the trends that you're hearing, and go through this framework. Now, in week 2, we're going to spend lots of time on validation, but I'm kind of getting you started early with this concept of validation. All right, step 5, we're going to think about building the business model. So we're going to map out how you plan to deliver the value and make money on this thing. So that is not validation. We're still in the ideation stage, but you need to be thinking about the ideas or the ways in which you could monetize these trends, these hidden opportunities that nobody else is seeing. If you can't monetize them, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. So we're going to think about the business model. Focus on the customer journey. Focus on sustainability, quality. You don't want to show up with a broken model just to chase after a trend. I know you're going to feel this pull to be very first. You don't necessarily have to be bleeding or cutting edge. You might want to be bleeding edge kind of thing. I'm not even sure which order that's supposed to go in. What I'm trying to say is you don't have to be the very first person in the market, but you want to be early in the market. If the very first person enters the market and their business model is terrible, then they're just going to fail. Customers are not going to be happy. You can swoop in early enough with a really good business model where you provide good service and good quality, and it will work. Now, forget about trying to do a perfect grand opening and that type of thing. I want you to start with a very small, soft launch to a limited audience. You're going to want to send it out to everybody so that you can be first, right? You're hearing a theme here. That's the pull you're going to find when you chase after trends. But if you'll release this to a small audience, it'll work best for you. The story about that is with Go Grab Lunch, my first startup. We opened up networking in every city in the world. And it was cool for a while because we had members in 45 countries, but we couldn't really manage that. Had we opened in a few select cities, it would have been easier to manage. And so we wouldn't have made the mistakes we made. So what you want to do is launch, test, and then iterate. And the only way to do that well is with select audiences through a soft launch. Then you use the feedback from that small audience to improve the product and then scale. If you're a gamer like me, this is what they do with betas. Arc Raiders is a very popular game right now. I tried it for a second, just wasn't for me. It was a neat concept, but I tried the beta, and what they do there is they limit the number of people that get to play it, and then they ask you to provide them feedback on what should be better so that when they launch to a broader audience, they fixed a lot of the challenges that people are unhappy with. So step 6 is launch, test, and iterate. Soft launch with a limited audience. Step 7 is you're going to grow through content and community. So you have to build an audience. This is YouTube, right? So social media matters, those types of things. You don't have to be everywhere, but you should use content for what's called inbound marketing, pulling people to you so they see you as a subject matter expert around the topic of your business. Use it to educate and inspire people. That's what I'm hopefully doing here, is educating you on how to start a business in 30 days. And we're talking all about ideation, right? So use content, build a community. I have a friend named Mark Schaefer. He wrote the book. I've forgotten the title of it, but it's all about building a community. And it's really important. It's one of the biggest ways to differentiate yourself is to create a community around what you're doing. So step 8, you're going to monitor and adapt. Now, all of this does nothing for you unless you follow how the trend is evolving, monitor the space, continue to listen to these new resources that you've developed, these new outlets that you've developed, question your own assumptions, experiment with trends. They can kind of ebb and flow. They can pivot. They can change. You need to have your ear to the ground on this and be able to adjust on the fly. Now, to wrap you up, I'm going to talk about a couple pitfalls to avoid. I want you to be careful. Don't chase every trend. Trace the ones that make sense. Take enough time to do your homework and see if they make sense. Is it a trend in a space that you know well? That way you can operate the business model well. That way you know it better than people who may be trying to jump on the trend and they don't know anything about it. Let's talk about AI again. If you were a software engineer and you understood technology and you understood AI early, it was a perfect place to jump on the trend. I know it's not a trend necessarily anymore, but it was a perfect place to jump on the trend. But if you were a restaurant owner and you didn't know anything about technology, jumping on AI was probably not the best trend to try and follow. So be careful you don't chase every single one. Don't ignore customer feedback. That's why we do the step 6, launch, test, and iterate to a small audience. You got to talk to customers. So sometimes trends can look very popular, but they pivot quickly because customers start to get frustrated for a variety of reasons. So you're going to want to listen to them. Don't be lazy, be ready to adapt. That is one of the hardest things about using the trend writer framework to start a business is it's going to change and it's going to change rapidly. You may or may not be able to keep up. I've talked to lots of people who are building AI solutions and they say things are changing so fast that within a week or less, what they are doing is completely obsolete and they don't have enough manpower to keep up. So you do have to be careful there. And then last, don't overcomplicate the model. Keep it very, very simple because that will allow you to adapt and change along the way. So the Trend Writer framework, it's a new way of seeing the world. It allows you to stay curious. You observe what's going on. You act on these insights, hopefully before they come obvious to most people and reach mass market. The best opportunities are all over the place waiting for people like you to find them to create your first business. I hope this helps. Have a great day.